the HK416D. As we know, it's a production that was made in Germany, and in fact, with this been tested here in the United States. Been used, as famously known for Osama bin Laden, used in the special forces like Navy SEALs, as we know, CAG, and even today's United States Marine Corps and local law enforcement. So why don't we talk about the review and do a MWS gas blowback version that was built from a very well company that uses PTW known as Hao. Alrighty then, so welcome back first and foremost to 6mm Project's third episode. And it's a special episode because, well, it's kind of one of my favorite rifles to go with is the Hao Industries HK416. As I said on my intro, we can't go wrong with a 416 in the real steel because it's used a lot everywhere. And at the same time, you can't go wrong in the airsoft community is using the Hao when it comes to conversion kits from MWS all the way to the PTWs that we know from Sistemas. So why don't we work our way from the tip to the butt, talk about the internals, and have a special day on a different type of range. But let's keep going and move on from there. So how did I start it off with buying my Hao Industries 416? Well, just like you normally would, is I went to the Hao Industries website and I looked at some conversion kits that I was looking at. Basically between was the 416A5 and the 416D. I think you already know exactly what what selection I made. Yeah, either way, what Hao Industries is you do get that same type of quality out there with everything from attention to detail alongside from their PTW systems and even into their new MWS gas blowback conversion kits. As we start off with is the realism attention detail is you do have is a standard M4 birdcage flash hider. Or is it? Well, underneath here is where things are different as the Hao Industries uses the 1/2 inch by 9 by 28 threading that is original to the same thing as you would see on a real steel AR. The same thing can be said about the quality as you do have as a steel outer barrel as well for your inner barrel to be hidden underneath and a really good replica of the gas piston driven system that is hidden underneath the rail like you would see naturally on an HK416, making it a 416. But other than the outer barrel and including the piston driven system underneath for the gas tube, let's talk about the rail. As the rail is still a one-piece Picatinny with 20mm Picatinnys all the way from 12, 6, 3, and 9 all the way through for multiple attachments that you can use like I did here with my Magpul foregrip, my Surefire scout light, my replica D-ball pressure pad, and backup front and rear sights. Now, again, you do see that this is a more realistic as even comparison to the AEG types where this is welded on a block instead of like the two-piece system that you see down here. Same thing can be said about my 12 o'clock Picatinny rails on the way back where it's somewhat interrupted, but not too much. Like, I mean, it's only on the section where there would be a nice block that would tie in to keep it zero all the way throughout, which was great innovation to the 416. I still have my attachments on here and the back end to the receiver towards it where you'll see is my EOTech magnifier and my red dot that's on top of a Wilcox mount. Now that I already talked about the rails, my attachments on here, let's go on to the meat and potatoes, which is the licensing trademarks that we do see on any type of receiver. So on the right hand side of the receiver for the lower, you do have is the standard Heckler Koch GmbH made in Germany, straight out of Deutschland. But underneath that is the Heckler Koch Defense. That was the main testing site, which was in Sterling, Virginia, for everything for reinforcement for the build of the HK416 program. Now, on the other side of the receiver, you'll see a lot more insignias out there, such as the HK. We do see the antlers like the European versions that are out there. My serial numbers with the matching QR codes, which unfortunately doesn't work, but still nice little touches that we do see on the receiver. Same thing, insignia on the lower receiver of HK, the 416 as the model, the D version, and the caliber, which is the most important thing, is the 5.56 by 45. Now, it's just like a normal AR. We do have the same controls as being safe, semi, and full auto, which indicators of being safe is white, semi for 1 bullet in red, and then the 30 for full auto, ready to go. If you're wondering what type of grips that you can use, and does the conversion kit come with the HK grip? Yes, it does. Now, I do have to forewarn about the grip is, when you do purchase the conversion kit, it does come in a 3D printed sleeve that would hold on to the original receiver, which can be a problem. The reason why I say this is after a certain amount of vibrations, this gun will start to pull out its own sleeve. A simple solution is either buy a real AR grip, like the Magpul version. I've seen it done, it looks good. But if you really want to keep that original HK grip in the back end, my recommendation is to pull out the sleeve, put a little bit of epoxy hardener, either like JB Weld or maybe even a clear epoxy, but use that instead to put in and reinforce and leave it a day. And you'll end up like what I have here, where it holds on for 2 years long and still hasn't moved out since then. Now that we talked about the receiver, let's move on to the stock. You'll have, of course, in the back end of it is your standard buffer tube alongside with the kit. The kit itself does come with the 6-positional buffer tube, but I also have to forewarn something on my kind of gripe with this Hao Industries is the buffer tube and castle nut. Even though I tighten this all the way through, I do have a couple hiccups where even using a little bit of red Loctite, or not even red Loctite, but blue, it still causes it to sometimes rotate off and make my stock crooked. So that is one little drawback that might be an issue for you. If it's not too much, then my recommendation again is to use an AR wrench to tighten down here and there every single period that you can, such as like just check on it every week after you're done playing. Because again, you can lose this with the same certain setup. So now that we talked about all the external that's on here and my attachments that's outside, let's talk about the main heart of operation, which is the internals that is compatible to whatever it is for this conversion kit. Right, so let's go ahead and disassemble it one by one. Just like a normal AR, we're going to take out the rear pin first, pull it shotgun style, push out the front body pin, and now we have 2 separate pieces. Alrighty, now that I have my gun separated into 2 separate pieces on here, let's focus on just the lower. As for the main heart and bones of the whole structure of the gun, I'm using is a Guns modified trigger box. Why am I using that more often is because it's the skinniest that I've seen that would fit into any type of receivers that are out there. And I do like some of the styles, like for example, we do have on the trigger itself is a G style trigger. It's something about it where it just makes it more more operator in that style. And I do love is Guns Modify is because it's still a lightweight trigger box on here, and their bolt catch is really strong with the reinforcement, and the Z plate, same thing can be said about it as well, with alongside some benefits to the trigger box, such as the sear and the hammer can be adjusted using the grub screws that are underneath, from the trigger, the sear, to even the main hammer on here for adjustments. So it does come in handy. As for the buffer, I do like recoil. So what I do have here is a strong reinforced Angry Gun buffer kit, and what helps lock it down is the GNP reinforcement buffer lock underneath inside the back end of the trigger box. So you do want to do some good reinforcement parts on here. Yes, you can use some donor parts inside, but I would be forewarned about that because sometimes the width might be a little bit too wide for the stock one. So I would say is do measure up on your original trigger boxes that you're going to use to help donate and put into the lower receiver. So another benefit to the kit that is here is they do provide you the ambidextrous selector for both sides of the 416 to make it more of that natural look in comparison to using your standard selector from the original trigger box. Another benefit that it does come with the kit is it comes with the body pins alongside the springs, and also the replica caps that you would have for your quote unquote your sear pins and your trigger box pins. Now, another thing I do have to forewarn about these tiny little pins that are in here, the fake pins, after a certain amount of vibration, just like the buffer tube and everything else, it can come off. So another recommendation is maybe you should look into the epoxy or super gluing those down before you put anything on the parts, and just be careful and mindful if it does fall off to do look for them, as they're really tiny. So now that I already talked about the lower, let's move on to the upper. So what I do have on here is, we'll start off with the most basic part, is my bolt. What I'm currently using is the Hao Industries and Unicorn collaboration, is their Eco-Line bolt systems. Now they do have it, if you do want to make a more kosher build, you can buy is the HK insignia bolts like you would see on the original HK416. You don't really need to use this though, as you can use your stock MWS bolt systems. Surprisingly enough, that does come in handy is if you do buy a separate one, is you can make it more outdoor and indoor friendly, as this is more TM compatible on the upper side. Such as you'll see is currently on this one I'm using is the high flow valve underneath inside the nozzle to make it more outdoor and give it that more impact punch I need for such a short inner barrel. As I'll even keep the original bolt for the donor gun, is having a spare bolt with the CQB system of the valve, where I'm able to use this for like indoor fields such as like Tac City or Project N1. Alrighty, so I already talked about the bolt. Let's move on to the main last piece that I do have, is my hop-up inner barrel and bucking. So for hop-ups, I've been using is more often, that's a lot more reliable, is the Guns Modified Adjustable Hop-Up System. I do like how they do point a plus indicator to show that if you recess it to the back of the wheel, you're increasing your hop-up. The same thing I do like is their arms and adjustments in there, where it does a very good complement to my 601 Maple Leaf Crazy Jet inner barrel with a length of 290 millimeters. Alongside, I'm using the complement that is a Maple Leaf 4-quad bucking, and I do have to admit, the compression with Maple Leaf is very good, and alongside that perfect contact between the BB and your arm with their little nub that they do give you, it does help out with the range, where I was able to use this at the most recent event that I went to. But why tell you about this when I already talked about the internals? Why don't I just show you downrange? It won't be my video unless we start doing drills. So let's get to it. Going for the left, we'll go this one since it's a cleaner target. Failure to stop. I'll do a pelvic shot. Ready? 3, 2, 1, action. Not bad. Kind of hard with the magnifier. Let's try it again. Failure to stop, pelvic shot. 3, 2, 1, action. Okay, much better. Failure to stop, headshot. 3, 2, 1, action. Okay. Not bad, not bad. Bill drill. Or you know what? Box drill. 3, 2, 1, action. Okay, not bad. But you know what? This is kind of boring. If there was only a way to do a different target. A big shout out to the staff of Lion Claws for allowing me to actually set up a nice mannequin for the targets out here at Prim. So let's try this out. All right, do a typical drill. Let's do a failure to stop, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. But there's no head, it's okay. Let's go from there. 3, 2, 1, action. All right, one more time. Failure stop. 3, 2, 1, action. One more time. All right, bill drill. Let's do a bill drill. 3, 2, 1, action. Not bad. 3, 2, 1, action. Alrighty. Not bad, not bad. I'm gonna have to zero everything, but let's try it again. All right. Bill drill. Action. Okay, so with 50 feet going all the way in the back, you'll have my perspective here, while we shoot with the camera out here to see exactly what the groupings are with 50 feet in a backyard. I'm using Puff Dyno high power gas, a high flow valve in my unicorn bolt for the eco line system, and 0.30 GNG gram BBs. Let's see how the range does. All right. 30 gram BBs, Puff Dyno high power gas, going for alpha shots all the way down the back, center mass. 5 shots. Why not do full auto? Pretty gassy, but pretty good. Let's see what's up. All right, let's look at the groupings. Other than the X marks here that shows that I already shot before, we do see it's a lot solid here on the groupings when we did the couple 5 shots at the beginning. But when we start doing bursts, it starts spreading out. But what we know with the human silhouette target, that's still pretty good for 50 feet. Maybe a little bit of adjustment for elevation on here to more of the 90 feet when we do outdoor for milsims. But other than that, let's head back to the studio. So on average for FPS, what I can see from doing the 2 bolts from the CQB valve to the high flow valve, with the CQB valve, you're able to do around the 330 to 350 FPS for indoors. It's really nice. If you're using a stock valve, you can go from 400 to 430. If you're using a high flow valve, you're looking at the same thing as well, being more of a consistency of 410 to 440. So you might want to be mindful of exactly what gas you're using or using what certain type of parts, just because of the fact that it can go way past the FPS limit. Now that I already talked about the FPS, let's do the main important thing that we need to talk about is magazine compatibility. So let's put this bad boy together, let's try out some mags and see what it goes from there. So what you can see here is I have 3 of the common types of magazines you'll see that is out here for the US for the MWS system. Starting off with, if we do have is the CGS Lancer style magazines for the SEMA, CGS or SP systems. And of course you would know is you do have is here is the Type 89, also equivalent to the same M4 Steinag stock MWS magazines. And the most common factors that have come in now to the US we do have is the guns modified, which I use more often on here for the better performance, recoil, and well, not really that much of the gas efficiency, but a lot more power when it comes to these magazines. So let's see what this kit would fit out. Starting off with the Lancer, I already know the main issue with this is it's so wide, it will not fit into the Hao Industries receiver. In fact, all I'm doing right now is just scratching my lower and the mag well. So no. What about the Type 89s or the M4 Stagnags? They'll fit fine. The problem is though, is with the Type 89 and sometimes the M4s is they're so somewhat wide where it's a pain where I have to now rip, as I'm trying to release the magazine, it's stuck in here. So you're gonna have your strong hand to rip the whole thing off and just to change your magazine. So it'll still work, but it's a problem when you need to reload. With Guns Modified though, on the other hand, easy to smooth in and out. So sadly, if you do want to get a conversion kit, look into buying in your future investment some guns modifying magazines to work with this gun. So for parts wise that do come with it is you do have is your rail, your body pins, your springs for the body pins. Every part most likely needed there other than your trigger box, inner barrel, your buffer weights, everything that would be the main components to help make the functionality of the gun work alongside your forward assist and your dust cover. But another thing that does not come with it is a set of instructions. So I would say either you need to send this to a professional technician to get this assembled, or if you are experienced, do watch a couple YouTube videos before you assemble the gun together. Overall, what do I think about the Hao Industries HK416? For look wise, I mean, it's great. Even as of right now, my gun is really banged up from the previous event. It still looks very good. I mean, the one thing I will say is there are many flaws on this kit. The buffer tube, the loose pins, that fake pins that can probably come off. And this is $1,000 kit. But what I really say is for the conversion kit that's out there as of right now, it's still a go-to system. Where I do like is it's MWS compatible to many parts. And it does help out for repairability of the functionality of the gun. So it is a possibility that is out there. Now, for me, in my investment, I do like this as it's very unique into something different than a stock MWS M4. But again, to each its own. Well, with other than the field and everything else on the range and testing this out, what do you guys think about the HK416? Would this be something that you would like, even though the cost for a conversion kit is $1,000? But again, to each its own. And again, for today's end of the tip is as well, invest in yourself like always. And also, if you need someone to talk to, therapy does help out. Always talk to a friend or anybody else. Hey, shoot me a message too and I'll help you guys out with anything else. But for that, I'll see you guys next time and enjoy the weekend.